before joining Astrocade, where you're now doing text to video game experiences, your research at the Stanford Vision Lab and the Socially Intelligent Machines Lab during your PhD involved humanoid robots and deep learning. I am super into these embodied AI applications, embodied meaning where it isn't just software, where there's some embodiment of the artificial intelligence in the world. So this could be a robotic arm, it could be a humanoid robot, but in some way the AI system can interact with the world. And so last year, you mentioned being excited by Google AI's work with LLMs for robotics. NVIDIA has been betting big recently on this with things like their Eureka announcement. For me personally, a huge thing that I've been so excited about is Covariant, out of Peter Beal's company Covariant, with their Robotic Foundation Model 1, RFM1, which it gives you a multimodal interface for robotic arms so that you can have text in or out, images in or out, video in or out. I did a whole episode on this recently if people want to hear more about that and why I think it's so interesting. So that was episode number 774. But yeah, so you, unlike me, you have real world experience developing real world robotics applications, stretching back to things like even during your undergrad at Georgia Tech, being involved in the solar racing car team, which in some ways is quite different. There isn't probably, as far as I'm aware, like an AI component to that, but nevertheless, you've been dealing with hardware, with real physical systems. I never really have. So I'm curious of digging into these things a bit with you. And so how do you envision LLMs and their injection of common sense of world models of interactive conversations with humans in a natural language way? Well, yeah, what do you think kind of are the big deals here that could be happening for us in the next little while?
Yeah, I think if you haven't worked in robotics, it's easy to underestimate how hard and how painful it is.
A phrase I got from your show that I now think about all the time and even say out loud all the time. I think Jeremy said it first. He said it's like something that they learn in Y Combinator, which you went through, which is hardware is hard.
Hardware is hard. Yes, exactly. And part of why it's hard within the context of AI is, in a way, you need everything, right? You need computer vision. And a lot of what AI has been and what we've made progress in AI is you take problems and you isolate them and you figure out how to do them without a general purpose model, right? So things like classifying objects, things like translating language. For the longest time, basically until a few years ago, that's what people worked on in AI, like narrow problems. Saying a model could do one thing and you could do it one thing well. And so for robotics, where you need all these things, to some extent, you need to be able to move, you need to be able to reason and plan, common sense, you need to be able to see things and understand where they are. And you need to do that all while having a physical system with the standard issues of control of like these very low level things of things that Boston Dynamics, for instance, works on, of being able to just keep upright and compute all the things that you compute somehow effortlessly. It's been hard. And so as we've seen the rise of general purpose things, what people call either foundation models or frontier models that are multimodal, so they deal with images, they deal with text, they deal with audio, it has seemed like that has a very direct impact on robotics because you have the common sense piece, you have the vision piece. What you don't have yet is the motion piece, the control piece. You can do the high level, but not the low level. But there's many ways in which you can integrate known techniques, and that's what has been done for a while. There were examples of that coming out of Google, for instance, pretty early on, where you took a high-level reasoner and low-level control via reinforcement learning, and you were able to then do general-purpose problems. And that's a dream, right? The dream is a general-purpose robot that can do whatever. We haven't been able to do that, but now, as with artificial human level intelligence, it appears like we can do that way faster than most people expected.
Yeah, exactly as you're saying. Part of what excites me so much about this space is how it seems like, except for as you're saying, the control parts, the software only LLMs or multimodal foundation models, that is something actually for me. I'd be interested in your thoughts on this because I kind of use the terms interchangeably. To me, even a multimodal foundation or frontier model, I still often call that an LLM because it seems to me that the I'm not aware really of big multimodal models that don't have a language component. And so it still seems like at an encoding level, the language piece is still really important. And so I kind of always end up calling those LLMs anyway. Do you think that's silly?
I suppose it's sort of like saying that a tomato is a fruit or something. Like they do include a large language model as one of their capabilities, so you can say that. But yeah, it's not quite precise enough because it does limit what it means.
Yeah, that's good. I should be more careful about that. But yeah, so these multimodal foundation models that have language as one of their capabilities. I like that tomato is a fruit, especially because I love catching people out on that. I mean, you can really blow people's minds with how many things are fruits that they think are vegetables, like peppers, cucumbers. There's so many things that they're like if you think about a Greek salad, a horiyatiki salad, it's just a fruit salad. Everything in there is fruit. Well, and cheese. So I go off piece a little bit here, but what's really exciting about this is that these multimodal models, except for as you're saying, the control piece in terms of controlling the hardware, it does seem like we've cracked so many different common sense things, world model things, where you're like, wow, it seems like there's going to be so many embodied applications. So that makes it really exciting. But simultaneously, because hardware is hard, it seems to me like there are great opportunities for people out there who have the patience and the capital to be developing embodied AI systems, because hardware is hard. If you can figure it out, you're going to have a moat no matter what. Whereas in the software space alone, like we were talking about earlier, these companies like even OpenAI is spending $1 billion, let's say, on GPT-5 or maybe GPT-6. Then someone else comes along and figures out how to do it at 1/10 of the price and offer it at 1/10 of the cost just 6 months later or 12 months later. It's crazy how quickly your moat can dissolve, at least on pure software LLM capabilities. Whereas if you have some hardware piece, that's kind of like where, again, tying back to the AI as a feature as opposed to being the product itself.
Right, and that's part of why you can be excited for robotics or sort of expect robotics to not take quite as long as we thought. For the longest time, it was hard to get money for general purpose robotics, right? We had a couple players like Boston Dynamics doing the R&D to do that for, I would guess, military applications and military funding. And you had some big automotive companies out of Japan doing some progress in humanoid robotics, but you didn't have many players and it was hard to come by the money. And in 2023, that changed. A lot of excitement happened around ChatGPT, and that, I think, in part led to companies like Figure, like 1X, Tesla is a bit different, but there's now several players that are spending a lot of money, a lot of talent to develop humanoid robots that you can use then to deploy and do whatever. Certainly, Elon Musk says that Tesla could be $1 trillion company because of a Tesla bot, for instance. And who knows if we'll get there, but Tesla bot as a roboticist, when they unveiled it at Tesla Day 2, I think the reaction from me and many people was like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty impressive. And you have the same thing with the videos that are coming out from Figure and 1X. It's pretty impressive how fast people are making progress.
Yep, it's very cool. And I'm excited to see these things make it more into the real world. I think I heard you recently say on the Last Week in AI podcast that one of the things that prevents humanoid robots from being used in, say, residential use cases is that they're still too strong. That there's, the amount that Like there's a chance of them really hurting someone or a pet or a child or
Right. They're too strong and they have bugs, right? You could, if you imagine someone has a bug, then it doesn't necessarily matter how strong it is. Like it's made of metal and it's
Mhm.
moving. So it's sort of like a car situation where just by virtue of the mass of it and the hardness of it, it's a little bit dangerous. And there are ways to work around that. You can have compliance, which Rodney Brooks' company, before they went under, Rethink Robotics had. So that's an element of it. I think cost is another very real element of it. But certainly before we get them in our homes, they'll be in factories and so on.